Hello everyone, welcome back. Now the first book is To Engineer as Human by Henry Petrosky, and he was an engineer. I'm not sure if he is still alive. This book is from early 1980s, 1982, and let's see what it says here. He is the professor of civil engineering at Duke University and a regular columnist for American Scientist magazine. He is also the author of The Pencil, A History of Design and Circumstance. You know, that doesn't sound too interesting, but I bet that's a really interesting book. And Beyond Engineering, Essays and Other Attempts to Figure Without Equations. His most recent work is Remaking the World. So this is a look at engineering failures over the years and how engineers have learned from failures and mistakes and how progress is made in engineering. That's really interesting. I have already started this. But I may have to set it aside. It's kind of, it wasn't very thrilling for the first, I don't know, 30 pages, but it started to be really good. But I'm just sort of, I've got a lot of things going on as far as books go right now, and I think I may have just started this, and I think it may have just tipped the scales a little too much. So I may have to put that aside for a week or so. The next book is John Krakauer's Eiger Dreams. And so if you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that I really like John Krakauer's writing. And I am trying to read all of Krakauer's books. I think this is a collection of essays and articles he wrote about mountaineers and the interesting people who turned to mountaineering. And like I said, I really like Krakauer's writing, but it may be some time before I get to this. I feel like I am a little bit, full of mountaineering right now because I read a couple of Krakauer's books, and then I tried to read Edmund Hillary's autobiography, which just didn't turn out to be my sort of book. I didn't really enjoy it very much, but it may be quite some time before I didn't finish it actually, but it may be some time before I read this. And the other thing is this was $2, and I've been looking for this for months, but I couldn't find it anywhere for less than $8 or $9, and I was just waiting to find this for a couple of dollars, and I finally did today. This is another book I got today. So this is by T.J. English, who wrote one of the books that I recommended recently in a recommendations video. That was The Westies. This instead is Born to Kill, and this is a look into the world of a Vietnamese American gang. So I think it started in, let's see, New York City's Chinatown, and then it went into the Deep South and California. And so I know nothing about Vietnamese gangs in America, so this will be really interesting. And I really like the way that T.J. English writes. It's been a long time since I've read one of his books, and I don't think I've ever held this book or seen this book. I may have seen it, but I don't think I ever picked it up or anything like that. And I was just happy to find this today. Yeah. The next book is a replacement for a book I already have. So I went to a Half Price Books the other day, and I saw a copy of this book for $14 without the dust jacket. And I have the paperback, but I was not sure if the paperback would be able to withstand a whole reading, because it is quite large and it would take me some time to get through it. It is James Michener's Iberia. So this is his book about Spain. This is nonfiction. This is his travels through Spain, the people he met, the places he went. There is James Michener right there. And it's really shiny because it has this library cover on it, this plastic, is it Mylar, I guess. This is from what year? The 60s, I think. 1968, yes. And so I bought it to replace this book, and this was only $1.59. And so I was afraid that if I read this, and one of the reasons I haven't started it or anything is because I was afraid it would fall apart. I thought, well, if this book falls apart, I never see this book. I can count on probably my hand how many times I've seen Iberia. And it's always expensive. The paperback is always expensive, and this is the best paperback that I have found yet. Most of them are kind of dried out and stiff. This one is not. But I thought, well, if it falls apart, I don't want to have to pay $14 for the hardcover without a dust jacket. So why not just spend the $1.59, and then you can just have the hardcover and read the hardcover, and you won't have to worry about it, basically. And you can, give the paperback to somebody or sell it or whatever, donate it. So as you can tell by my shirt and my stubble here, a couple of days have passed between this moment and when I made this video. And that is because on these last two books, I got a little bit maudlin. I took a really long time to explain these books and to talk about them, and I went back into the past, and I was feeling kind of sentimental and talking about how I remember scenes from these books, sort of. And so I just wanted to reshoot this, just because that period, that segment went on way too long. And so I'll still explain why I felt the way that I did and everything. So the next two books are, well, the first book is Heartland of a Continent by Ron Fisher. And there is Ron Fisher right there. And so this is about the Midwest. And I am not from the Midwest. I live in Kentucky. I've lived here for 26 years, I think, 26 years. But I'm from Arkansas. I'm from the Arkansas River Valley, which is really gently rolling mountains. It's the Ozarks. It's where the Arkansas River has come through and carved these channels. And I was right on the Arkansas River, actually. I'm from a town called Clarksville. And there's only 7,000 people who live there. It's the largest town in the county, and the county is Johnson, and it is 700 some odd square miles. So it is a fairly rural area. And really that part of Arkansas is almost part of the transition, like the prairie transition. Not quite, but I'm very familiar with the transition into Oklahoma. I've been to Oklahoma many times. And as you can see, I am from right about there, right in that area, right in there. And my point in that is that there are scenes in this book. This is from 1991. And although some of it, like Buffalo in the Plains, is not going to be very familiar to me, although I do remember someone who actually had some buffalo. And they are apparently very hard to keep because they will just tear down your fences left and right. But these scenes like this are rather familiar to me. And I was going through these next two books, this book and the next one, and I was just thinking about how I am familiar with all these scenes, and there are some scenes like this here in Kentucky as well. There's farmland here, but I remember when people used to dress like that, right? And I remember when you go places, stores, and people would be dressed like that, and they'd be sitting around tables like that, and they'd almost always be smoking. You could smoke indoors then, and it just made me a little bit sad. It makes me a little sad to look through pictures like this because I am familiar sort of with this time period and with rural areas, and I one of the reasons I'm remaking this part is because I went on for quite a while about my great-grandparents, and I knew two sets of my great-grandparents. I actually knew, let me see, quite a few, and I remember some of their houses, you could walk in and it would feel like the 80s or the 70s. And I was just remembering how some of my relatives kind of, I'm reminded by some of the people in these books of my relatives, and some of whom are not around anymore. And just of people that I used to see, people that I used to We used to go to yard sales and flea markets, and I would go with my grandpa all over the place. And we would just, I remember when old guys dressed like that. Some old guys still dress like that, I know. But where I'm from, people used to dress like that all the time, every day, right? And I just got a little overwhelmed by it. I got a little sentimental, and I just thought that I would cut that and redo this so that it didn't look like I was quite as depressed as I was. And I also got the face of rural America. So this is from 1976. This is almost entirely in black and white, and this is a yearbook by the Department of Agriculture. It's a visual record of America's agriculture in the bicentennial year. And so even though I was not born in the 70s, some of the cars and like the way people are dressed, the things they are doing in these photos, the interiors of their houses, um, it just really, it's very familiar to me, right? Even though I came along almost 30 years later, well, 85, 95, yeah, 25 years later is about when I would have started to really pay attention to the world around me, I guess. And it just kind of bothers me, right? It just kind of hit me hard, thinking about how I don't live there anymore. I haven't been back in quite some time. And like I said, I'm not from the Midwest, but this book here is not entirely about the Midwest. And it just, I don't know. It is a strange thing to see how the world changes. That is both like the blessing and the curse of photography, is that it freezes a moment, right? And you can look and you can see this guy sitting in his chair, but I'm willing to bet he's probably not around anymore. And a lot of the places, a lot of the stores and the houses and things in these books, they are just gone. They're just gone. And I find that kind of sad, I guess. Kind of sad. But I still love these books, and I should buy more of these than I do, I think. One reason I don't is because they are heavy, and if you have a lot of coffee table books, then you will know that the main thing that they do is sit around and take up space. But I still love them, and I have quite a few, and I have been thinking about how I can maybe make a video all about my coffee table books. I don't have like a huge amount, but it's mainly because they are so heavy that you can really only put them on the bottom of a bookcase, at least the cheap bookcases that I have. If you put them up on a shelf like up here, it'll just crack and break and fall down. Now I could put them on this credenza, I suppose, and I could put them on this thing over here, and I could always build a shelf, but it is a space issue mainly. And it is, how often am I going to return to these books, really? I have a few that I would like to get rid of. But anyway, we will go back to the original video now. That is my book haul today. And I want to thank you very much for joining me and for hearing me out and dealing with my little sorrows there. And I will hopefully see you next time.